Alright, what's up guys, it's Zero here, and today we have for you, I have for you a really late deck profile actually, 2 months late, but it's for a Dragonic Blademaster, the poster child of Kagero, but let's be real, the poster child is still Overlord, but regardless, this is the stride focused deck for Kagero for G, so without further ado, let's take a look at my build. So this list was the exact list that I took to CS. This deck did perform very well. Well enough at least. So yeah, this was my list. Changes I would make: I'd consider cutting the Strikins for more Neo Flames, but I'll explain why I'm playing the Strikins to begin with, anyways. But I would consider playing more Neo Flames. I would not consider playing more the Greats. I do not think the Great is a good card. This is just a filler one up for now. So I'll get to that as I go to the cards. So we'll start with everyone's favorite starter, Conroe, CB1. Kill itself off. Search for Dick running grade 1. You can search Stride Fodder. You can search PG. You can search Scaling grade 1. You can search Guard. You can search whatever you need to here with the Conroe. Very versatile starter. No reason to play any other starter. Next we have the that's not the PG. We have the PG, the new PG, the Countercharge PG. Nothing too special here. We have 4 of the Lava Flow Dragon, I think is the name of this card. It's the Stride Fodder, but since your main ride in this deck is Blademaster, you can't. This is very nice that you can sort your main ride with this. Like all the Stride Fodders, a Rearguard Circle on place. Discard a card, search your deck for a grade 3 Blademaster, so your main ride, and then obviously Stride Fodder in hand. Next up is the grade 1. I don't know the name of this card, but this is a 6K that gets a 5K power when one of your opponent's cards are tied by your card effect. So if you pop something with Blademaster Stride bonus +5, pop something with Stride +5. If this thing's already on the board at the start of your turn, and you go for Root Flare and Blademaster's Stride bonus, that's +15. So this thing can just be a 21K solo attacker or 21K booster. Very nice for this deck because this deck is focused on retiring. So this card is actually very nice. It being 6A doesn't matter. One of the reasons why I wanted to play Striking was because I wanted something that could scale properly with this thing in case that this thing didn't get power yet for some reason, or I just wanted I just wanted something that could scale 21 even when this thing only gets 5K power. So because a regular 9 can only scale for 20, and sometimes that could be awkward. So that's part of the reason why I want to play Striking, because it scales better with this thing. And then the one of is the Grom. Soul Blast 2, Countercharge 2. You're not playing the end in this deck, so you can play this card in this deck. Only a filler 1 of just because this deck is actually really light on Counterblast for the most part. Usually what ends up happening, you end up just using like 1 Counterblast a turn for Blademaster's Stride bonus, and then because Mustafa refunds itself, Mahmood doesn't cost Counterblast, Root Flare is free. So realistically speaking, you're using 1 for Conroe, and then like 1 a turn for Blademaster, and then you just might want to budget your Counterblast later in the game if you also want to use the Overlord, which does actually come up. So I don't actually think Rom is that needed in the deck. That's why it's only a 1 of. If anything, I consider cutting this card for a 5th copy of this card, because this card is there's the old Marhaga, the card that Perditions were playing, the card back from like set like 2 or something like that has the exact same skills as this card. The Grom is definitely cuttable, but I just like having it as a 1 of just because. So yeah. That's it for grade 1s. Grade 2s, I'll go over the not striking cards first. So first off, the Jabad, GB1 12K attacker. So just a solo attacker, very nice. This deck does need solo attackers because Dragon decks aren't known for getting boosters, so that's what we're playing for this guy. Next up is I don't know the name of this card, but Subhat I think is the name of this card. Whatever. The skill of this card is that during your turn, if there's nothing in the same column as this card, +3K, so another solo attacker. I do value solo attackers quite a bit in this deck, so that's why I'm playing a total of 7. I was even playing 8 before when I wasn't playing Striking, so I do think the solo attackers are very important in this deck. I don't think any other creatures offer anything for this deck either, because Blademaster plus Stride retires more than enough, so you don't need anything like Bellicose. You don't need anything like Berserk. I don't think this deck needs Bellicose because you are not heavy on Counterblast, and I also don't think I think Burnout is okay, just because it's cheap and you're not leading, so you don't mind banishing your Overlords anyways. But Narukami existing means they'll banish your Overlords, meaning you can't use Burnout anyway, so it ends up being 9K vanilla. So I personally think that that this dude is nice just because it's an extra solo attacker. Next up, 2 Neo Flames. Just filler for now, but this card does perform whenever you draw into it. On play, it gets skills. CB1, when something in this column gets retired, CB1 pops something else in that column. So CB1, kill a booster, very nice. Although you do retire a bunch of stuff with Blademaster already, this is good. This is good for punishing your opponent for committing early when you can't go into Blademaster yet, or when you're going first, you need to kill something else. So This card's nice for when you go first. Or no, this card's nice for when your opponent commits early and puts cards in the back row for you to kill early. So that's why I like Neoflame. That's why I'm considering playing more of this card. But for now, it's only 2. And then lastly, the 4 strike-ins. So Restraint, and when you run on top of it, plus 5k plus a crit. So why am I playing this card? This card is very counterintuitive with strides, but the reason I'm playing this card is because this card is very good for when you go first, and if you haven't figured it out by now, this game is a straight up go second game right now. You go second, you're in a huge lead, you're in a commanding position. This card makes it so when you go first, you don't feel as bad because you can push some extra damage with it because you can go. If you ride a 10k, chances your opponent cannot push you for extra damage early anyways because you're on 10k base. So what you can do, they're probably just like swing at your Vanguard pass. You can ride the Blademaster, call something, and since Blademaster gets plus 3k on ride, you make exactly 19, meaning as long as your opponent didn't ride a 10k base, rear plus the Blademaster with the strike-in power and crit gets you to exactly 19, so you don't get screwed by defensive. Low commit turn, and you get to push for 3 damage. So that's why I personally play the strike-in. Strike-in is also nice against matchups that cannot retire front row, because by putting down a 10k intercept, your opponent has to commit action. More likely than not, they have to commit extra cards to get rid of it, meaning they put a back row for them to get over your intercept, meaning Blademaster gets an extra card to kill, and this deck is a very board control or line strategy, so that's why I think Strike-In has a pretty nice niche there. But obviously in matchups where things getting retired, it doesn't matter what power this thing has, right? So yeah. That's why I'm playing Strike-In, but this card is definitely kind of awkward going second. A lot of times when you go second, I just choose to not ride Strike-In at all. If I have like something else to ride, I ride something else and just call the Strike-In instead. But yeah, it does have a cool niche in this deck, but I definitely think it is cuttable, and I'm thinking about cutting it myself. So it's nice to have in some situations, but at the same time, it's also not the best thing to run in my opinion sometimes. So yeah, that's it for the grade 2s. Grade 3s, 4 Dragonic Blademaster, the main ride for the deck. GB2, you get more rears than your opponent, plus 5k plus a crit. This actually does come up quite often, actually, especially in my list, in the way I play this deck. So do know that this skill actually exists, unlike something like Vanquish where its GB2 skill doesn't exist, basically. And then plus 3k on ride, and when your Genius strides on top of it, CB1 retire rear. So that's strat bonus, really good. CB1 pop a card, really nice. And then next off, we have the other four of. Oh yeah, we also have heal guards. Heal guards are heal guards. Not much else to say about them. My other 4 I choose to play is the base Dragonic Overlord. Most lists I've seen running around are playing the Great. I don't think the Great is a good card at all. You might play Neoflames, but you don't have to play the Great to go with it, right? But the reason why I don't think the Great's good, it's basically just a glorified hand filter, as well as also the fact that Narukami exists, meaning Legion just isn't as good right now. So I personally value a rear that can do things. You can't look at it the fact of, oh, Overlord doesn't do anything, right? You have Blademaster plus any strides already front row, right? But this card deals with resist, and it also lets you go for more guaranteed lethals when your opponent's at 5, where you can just Overlord kill the front row and use Blademaster's GB2 for the 2 crit to face for the last swing to try to ensure lethal. So I do think this card does come up quite often enough that I do like having it as a 4 of, and so that's why I personally choose to play 4 Overlords over like the Great or like a Pain Laser or something. Because when you think about it, if you don't ride into Blademaster, whatever you ride is probably just 11k vanilla anyways, so Overlord is essentially the same thing as riding a Great and striding on top of it, so yeah. The Great also deals with resist intercepts, but it only deals with 1, which is kind of awkward, which is why I also do not like it. And finally, to wrap things up, the one of is the Great. Legions with Neoflame, once per turn, I'll hit the rear. If you're in Legion, CB1, discard 2, stand, draw 2. And then this skill is basically relevant because the second skill is basically relevant because I'm not playing XX copies of this card, but its skill is sack off something standing on something on your Vanguard to retire a card. Basically, you'd have to draw into the 1 copy of Neoflame after Legioning and retire that, but that skill basically doesn't come up anymore. So yeah, that's it for the main deck. G-Zone, 4 Root Flares, GB2 once per turn, G Persona Flip to choose a card and kill everything in that column. So it is a Pain Laser, it is a column retire, and if you choose the back row, as opposed to, if you choose a back row and the front row has resist, it does kill the thing with resist, so that's something to note there. But good players will more often than not put the resist by itself, so you can't Root Flare target it, and that's where something like Overlord would come in. But yeah, this is your ideal second stride. The instant you have GB2, the instant you have GB2, if your opponent gives you a column, you Root Flare that column off, because you don't want them having any boosters for free. So yeah, Very good card. I do think this deck needs 4 of this card to function. As sad as that is, I do think this deck needs the 4 Root Flares. Next off is 3 Mustafas. So his skill is, once per turn, GB1. Persona flip anything, or not flip anything, to retire a card, and then you give, and then for every copy of itself you have in your G zone face up, you give a card on a counter charge one. So what you do, although the Mahmood is here in the deck, let's go over this card now. On hit, kill, retire a card. Although the Mahmood is here, you almost always want to go for Mustafa first, because going for Mustafa means you enable Blademaster's GB2 immediately on the following turn, because you stride GB1, flip GB2, and then next turn, if your opponent just puts a bunch of resistance and stuff, you can just hit them for 2 crit. So that's pretty nice to have. So that's why we're playing multiples of this card. You do want to flip itself to get the counter charge, but the one of is here because Mustafa can flip anything. You could just flip the Mahmood if you end up going like Mustafa, first strike Mustafa, flip Mustafa, and then try the third Mustafa, just flip the Mahmood instead. You can always do that. You don't have to play 4 Mahmood. You don't need the 4 Mustafas in this deck. So yeah. The times where you go to Mahmood are usually when you only have 1 open counterblast, and you want to use Blademaster to retire to kill a front row off, and then you still want to retire, so you go to the Mahmood instead. So it does come up, so that's why you still do play the one of it. But the awkward thing with this card is that if you stride into this, you'll have an odd number of cards in your G zone, because this flips itself, this flips itself. So these two are basically a set. You stride into this, you stride into this, you flip this, and then you have 1 copy of the Mustafa left, which is super awkward. But it does come up that this one of does matter, so I do think it is actually better to play one of this instead of 4 Mustafas. So that's it for this deck profile. I'll have some games for you guys after this. Just like with the mirror video, I'll have the games where I played in CS with this deck after this. Like and subscribe, all the good stuffs. I will see you guys next time. Peace out. Alright, just a quick add-on to the end of this video. I did update my list from when I played CS. This was a little bit after, but I still want to show those games off, so I'll leave those games in as is with the old build. But this is my current build of Blademaster. As you can see, I took out all the strike-ins for burnouts, just because more retire is nice. And I'm playing burnouts instead of Neo Flame, just because burnout also has potential to our front row if you need it to. Some niche scenarios might be like you don't have the counter blast, or either there's like a bunch of stuff you want to retire and you don't have the counter blast to use, like Mustafa and Blademaster and a Neo Flame. This thing can let you like pop a front row and use Mahmood to kill a back row off instead. Just stuff like that. So just I'm playing more burnouts. Also, sometimes you just can't stride, or you want to use Blademaster's GB2 for the crit instead, and so you need to not stride period. So I think the burnouts have some pretty cool applicable uses to the deck, so that's why I chose to play the burnouts in here. Initially, it was because I wanted to play 2 of the aces, but after trying for a bit, it clogged my G zone up too much with the retention of space in it, because everything required a flip. So you end up going like Mustafa first ride, flip something, flip the Mustafa, and then you're forced to go into Root Flare before you go into the aces. Sometimes you want to go into like another Mustafa, another Mahmood early on instead. So that's why I decided against playing the ace in this deck. So yeah. So just a quick little update on the list, so I don't have to like make a post or redo a video or anything. But yeah, this is the current list I'm playing. This list I'm relatively happy with. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you, and you'll get to watch my games after this. Like I said earlier. So yeah, see you next time. Peace out.